Hi, my name's Reverend Nancy Wilson. These words of reflection that I share are based on a story as told by Henry Carter that is called Take Hold of Love. It is shared on Sunday, December the 20th, 2020, as we reflect on this Advent Sunday of Love. Years ago, there was a minister, Henry Carter. I think it was in the 70s, he submitted this story to the Guidepost magazine. And as I understand it, he was a minister in the church and also served as a chaplain for children in a group home with mental and physical challenges. And so they lived right in the church home, and he was often balanced both roles in terms of his ministry and draws on a powerful connection of an experience he had to describe the meaning of Christmas. He mentions that not unlike many of us as ministers, he was working on a Christmas sermon on Christmas Eve day and trying to feverishly come up with something new and fresh to say about such a familiar story when the floor mother of the group home appeared at his study door. She said, "There's another crisis upstairs." And so being Christmas Day, it was always a difficult day for the children who were in the home because 3/4 of them went home for the night. And the ones who remained then were just very reactive to the empty beds and the changed routine. And so as Henry followed her up the stairs, he was still thinking about what the content of his message might be for the following day, and got to the dormitory room when the floor mother said, "This time it's Tommy." He had crawled under a bed and he had refused to come out. And so she kind of pointed to one of the 6 cots in the dormitory room and then quietly let herself out of the room. Well, without being able to see a hair or a toe beneath the bed, Henry found himself speaking more to the bedspread of the cowboy hats and Broncos on it. And he talked about the brightly light tree in the church next door, the packages underneath it, and all the other good things that were waiting for Tommy out beyond the bed. And yet there was no answer. So as he was thinking of all the time that this was taking, he dropped to his knees and lifted the bedspread and peered in and saw 2 enormous and wide eyes looking back at him. Tommy was 8, but he looked like he was about 5 in this setting. And it wouldn't have been any effort at all for Henry to simply pull him out from underneath the bed. But it wasn't pulling that Tommy needed, and Henry knew that. He knew that it was trust and a sense of deciding things on his own initiative. And so, crouched there on all fours, Henry launched into the menu of the special Christmas Eve supper to be offered after the service, told him about the stocking with his name on it as provided by the Women's Society, and still silence. There was no indication that Tommy had even heard or cared about Christmas. And so at last, not knowing what else to do or any other way to make contact, Henry got down on his stomach, and as a grown adult, he wiggled in beside him with the bed springs snagging his suit jacket. For what seemed to be a long time, he laid there with his cheek pressed against the floor. And at first he continued talking about the big wreath above the altar and the candles in the windows, and reminded Tommy of the carol that he and the other children were going to sing. And then Henry simply ran out of things to say and just waited there beside him. And as he waited, this small, chilled hand crept into his. "You know, Tommy," he said after a bit, "it's kind of close quarters in here. Let's you and me go out where we can stand up." And so they did, but slowly, without a hurry. And all the pressure seemed to have gone from Henry's day because, you see, he had lived his Christmas sermon. While he lay flattened on the floor, he realized that he'd been given a new glimpse into the mystery of the season. He wondered, hadn't God called to us too, just as he'd called to Tommy from far above? With the stars and the mountains, God's whole majestic creation, hadn't the Creator pleaded with us to love God and to enjoy the universe created and given to us? And when humanity would not listen, God had drawn closer. Through prophets and lawgivers and people of faith, God spoke with us face to face. But it wasn't until that first Christmas, not until God stooped to the earth itself, not until God came to dwell with us in our loneliness and alienation, that we, like Tommy, dared to stretch out our hands and to take hold of that love. It wasn't the glitz or the promise of gifts that brought Tommy out of his secluded place. It wasn't the Christmas traditions of singing carols or candlelighting that coaxed him out. It wasn't even the special food that enticed him from under the bed. What moved him from a place of uncertainty was the assurance, the comfort, the love of the one he trusted. The one who created that trust by taking time to bond with him and meet him where he was at in his life. The one he knew would stay with him in that squashed and uncomfortable space under the bed, and also in the large, daunting, and sometimes overwhelming space of the world. It's in the Christmas story that Mary sings of how God brings the powerful to their knees and lifts up the lowly. God offers mercy and strength and courage when needed most. And God invites us to go forth and carry the message of the season to others this year. This year, as many might feel uprooted by the change to Christmas plans or traditions, may we, in conversation with God, place our hand in the one who looks upon us with favor, calls us blessed, and leads us forth into the world. Emmanuel, God is with us. Thanks be to God. Amen.